Sport tonight, we're back at the Sir Graham Henry dinner talking to MC Phil Gifford.
The post-Henry All Blacks, what do you make of them so far?
Well, first of all, I think it's fantastic that they've moved on and actually made some changes to the team. Not radical changes, you wouldn't expect that. But I think, for example, I think one of the bravest selections is Aaron Smith at halfback, and I applaud it because one of the things that tends to happen when you look at the history is that after a very successful side of the World Cup, and I think in particular the 87 team and the 95 teams, then the next coaches weren't really prepared to move on very much. And so, like in 87 we struggled on through to 91 with the team that really had a lot of players that should have been replaced. And after 95 making the final in South Africa, then the wheels totally fell off by 1998 because there just hadn't been enough, if you like, imaginative selecting. And that's what I applaud Smith, Hanson and company for right now.
I gave him a pat on the back too for trying to win the next test and not worrying about what's coming in by picking Sonny Bill and picking his best 15.
Yeah.
And do you agree with that philosophy?
Look, the whole Sonny Bill thing goes into an area that nobody in New Zealand rugby has ever seen anything like it before. And to be honest, it may be a while before we see it again because we are just not accustomed to the idea of a guy that sort of drops out of the sky and then goes back into the mothership and disappears and then maybe drops back out of the sky again. We're all used to the idea of you do your apprenticeship, you work hard and you get through. Look, I think Sonny Bill has been great for New Zealand rugby. Not for old farts like me, because older guys and traditionalists tend to look down their nose a bit at him because of all the extraneous stuff with boxing and the shirt off all the time and that sort of stuff. But from the point of view of younger people who are not necessarily rugby tragics, and the fact is that rugby doesn't have a right to New Zealand sporting public now. There's so many other great sports that people take an interest in. But somebody like Sonny Bill Williams, I think, is essential to interest basically kids, if you like, in the game because he's got a hint of that sort of American type glamour. And the days of everybody just being straight up and down like they used to be 40 years ago, well, you need guys like that in your team, and you've got the Franks brothers and they do all the hard yards and everything, but you need some flash as well, and guys like Sonny Bill provide it.
What about the relationship between the All Blacks and the public these days? You followed rugby for many, many years. Is it in a good state of health? I mean, at one time they were supposedly up themselves and remote. I don't find them so these days. Do you think it's improved out of sight?
I think well, yes. First of all, yes, it has. I think the relationship's very warm now. Let's be brutally honest, the main reason is because they're winning and they won the World Cup. I mean, they could have been the nicest guys. They could have kissed every baby. They could have gone and mowed lawns. They could have fixed roofs of pensioners' houses. They could have done everything. But if the French had dropped the goal in the last minute of the Rugby World Cup, there would have been a bunch of dicks and Henry shouldn't have ever been reappointed.
And you wouldn't be here tonight, would you?
I wouldn't be here tonight, you know, and Richie McCaw would have been a lousy captain and all that sort of nonsense, that overreaction. So, look, when you're winning, then there's a very good chance that it's going to be pretty easy and pretty straightforward to have the public love you. I also think, quite genuinely, they've got some very nice guys in that team. I mean, I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but the fact is Richie McCaw is a good bloke. Dan Carter is a lovely guy. And they're not the only ones. You wouldn't meet a nicer person than Kevin Mialami. They've got a core of guys, and my feeling, and I'm not close enough to them to know for sure, but my feeling is that the guys running the team, and it always happens in business and in sports, I think, Tom, is that the people running the show set the tone for the younger guys, for the rest of it. So if the people at the top of, say, the All Blacks are actually decent, fairly humble, nice people, there's a fairly good chance of a young kid coming in and think, oh, that's how you behave. Whereas at times in the past, if the people in charge have perhaps been a bit arrogant, a bit pleased with themselves, and I don't want to name any names, but we can all think of eras when it's been like that, then that's how young guys behave, because it's a pack mentality, and if the leader of the pack is a decent person, then the pack will behave well.
I think the Liverpool quote tonight, good people make good players.
Yeah.
That's true, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, it is, and look, it doesn't automatically follow, because I've known some real pricks that were great players. But
and some good blokes who are hopeless players.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't really automatically follow, but if you can find the mixture where it's a good person and he's also a good player. What I actually think, and I wouldn't, God forbid, I would never want to contradict a man like Brian Lahore, would have forgotten 1,000 times more about rugby than I've ever known. But what I would actually suggest is that good people make good teams. You know, I'm not absolutely convinced that good people make automatically good players, but they sure as hell I think you're not going to have a really good team unless you've got good people, or a core of good people that set the standards.
I want to talk about Robbie Deans, because I know you've got to have a lot of time for him.
Sure.
I certainly did. I think he's a wonderful coach, and he just in a time where he's not got a lot of stock to play with. Is he getting a fair go?
Well,
He won the Tri-Nations last year. People have forgotten that. That was a good
yeah, that's true. Look, in a short answer, I think he is getting a fair go because he's still there. He's not Blue McLennan. He's not out looking for another job. I mean, he's had 4 years. He's into his 5th year. He's going to, by the look of it, he's going to have a 6th year. And while at the end of the day, if he does 6 years, my feeling is quite possible that the Wallabies will still be about where they are now in World Rugby. They certainly won't be challenging the All Blacks, I don't think, for the very simple reason that it wouldn't matter if the Lord and the 12 apostles, or however many there were, came back and coached. I'm not very religious, I apologise for that to religious people, but it wouldn't matter who was coaching the Wallabies, you're going to struggle because they just don't have enough good players. And the other thing is they don't have enough depth. So you lose 1 or 2 players to injury and suddenly you're really struggling. Whereas as we have seen on numerous occasions with All Black rugby, not in every single position, but in most positions, you can have 1 or 2 or 3 guys go down and somebody, Beaver Donald, pops up, So there is such a depth in this country, and I don't think Australia really has that.
Similar situation with Auckland, perhaps. Can Kerwin and Henry combination do the job, do you think? Or is that just a publicity thing as these days?
No, I think it's a masterstroke that they've got Graham advising as a technical advisor, because there's no question he's a wonderful analyst of the game. And if I go back in the day when Grant Fox was working with Wayne Pivac as the coaches of Auckland when Graham came back from Wales, he acted as an advisor to them. And I remember at the time Grant Fox saying the extraordinary thing was that as a former head coach, you would think Graham's ego wouldn't allow him to just hand over all the material and say to the coaches, basically let the boys think this came from you. But Foxy says that's exactly what happened, and I think the same thing will happen now with John Kerwin and company, that Graham Henry will give them fantastic analysis. The interesting thing will be what John Kerwin and his assistants can actually do with it. And you get back a little bit too to have they got the cattle. There's a little bit of the Wallabies thing there, because the Blues really, I don't think, are particularly strong in player depth.
But the days have gone now where Auckland's not strong and the All Blacks aren't strong. I mean, that's because of the provisional era, that's no longer the case, isn't it?
Well, that's just a nonsense, because there's Aucklanders playing all over the country and there's Otago players all over the country. So you're right. In the days of the provincial situation, although I think that was always a very Auckland-centric thing, saying that the All Blacks were only any good when Auckland was good. I mean, when I think about it, if I really want to go to the timetable, and I'm trying to quickly run through the team in my mind, in 1956 when we beat the Springboks, the 4th Test team that ran out at Eden Park and beat South Africa to win that series contained, yes, that's right, not one Auckland player, not one. So
cyclic, isn't it? Cyclic.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really matter whether it's Waikato that are strong, Wellington that are strong, Otago that are strong, Canada that are strong. So the All Blacks strong, because the All Blacks, as we all know, don't usually come from one province. I think it goes back to the '87 World Cup though, when there were like 12 Aucklanders in the team in the final, and Auckland just had that golden era. But I don't really think it matters. And as you say, it's a very good point. With composite teams or franchises, I don't really like that word, but I can't even know the way to say it, with Super Rugby, that those teams are like all-star teams. They're from everywhere in the country, aren't they, basically?